Good afternoon, and welcome to our Academic Excellence Committee meeting for Tuesday, August 18th. I am super excited about this agenda, so I will keep my comments very short and turn over to Dr. Watts to see if she has any opening comments before we kick it off.
I will keep my comments short as well. It's exciting to be able to have a strong focus on academics, and I'm too very excited about this agenda. And with that said, I'll turn it over to Mr. Derek Butler, our Chief Academic Officer, and let him take it from there.
All righty. So,
real quick before you do that, let's
yes.
do any changes to the agenda. All approved. Motion to approve the minutes by Ms. Hall, second by Ms. Campbell. All in favor? Okay. Now you, Mr. Butler. Thank you.
All righty. So, great afternoon. I too am excited to kick off our Academic Excellence Committee engagement for this school year. Today's presentation, at least the first one, provides us an opportunity to close the loop on a topic that we've discussed previously. So we'll be sharing the impact of our 2026 summer programs, but we'll also use this as an opportunity to continue our PDSA continuous improvement cycle and share with you the outlook for 2027, or at least some things that we are considering as we continue to refine our summer experiences for students. After that presentation, we'll share some exciting conversations around our choice program redesign, and we'll make sure we set the stage for that as well. But at this time, I want to invite and also express appreciation for Dr. Heather Corbett, as well as Stacy Pottinger, who collaborated to develop our presentation today, but more importantly, who supported and collaborated with our school leaders and the Office of School Leadership for summer programs. And so with that, I'll invite them to the podium to share this afternoon our summer programs, 2026 impact, and our 2027 outlook.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to present the impact of our 2026 summer learning programs and provide an outlook for 2027. My name is Stacy Pottinger. I'm the Coordinator of Academic and Student Services for the Office of Strategy, and I'm joined by Dr. Heather Corbett, Director of Research and Evaluation. Today, we'll review summer learning outcomes, examine the district's investment in these programs, and discuss evidence of student growth and success, and outline how we plan to strengthen our summer learning moving forward. While the core purpose of summer learning is to provide students with a second opportunity to recover credits, close learning gaps, and build confidence in a supported and structured environment, we also recognize that the board has consistently challenged us to look beyond participation, promotion, and credit attainment alone. Taking that into consideration, along with our ongoing examination of the district's promotion and retention policy, strategic plan, and strategic waivers, it helped guide our analysis of Summer Learning 2026 and will continue to inform our planning, evaluation, and decision-making for summer of 2027. Throughout today's presentation, we will share evidence of student outcomes, review the supports and investments that made those outcomes possible, and discuss how we will strengthen our evaluation efforts to better measure academic mastery, return on investment, and long-term student success. Summer learning remains an important part of our district strategy to support students who need additional academic opportunities, whether through remediation, acceleration, credit recovery, enrichment, workforce development, or transition support. This summer, our goal was not simply participation. Our goal was to provide targeted learning experiences that improved academic performance, increased readiness for the next grade level, and kept students on track towards graduation. The results we will share today suggest that summer learning continues to serve students in a meaningful way while also highlighting some areas that we can strengthen for our Summer Learning 2027. The next two slides provide a brief reminder of our winter presentation and a highlight of our intentional access and targeted supports. While enrollment, attendance, promotion, and credit attainment remain important indicators, they only tell part of the story. Summer Learning was intentionally designed to remove barriers to participation and provide students with the academic, social, emotional, and physical supports necessary for success. To accomplish this, the district invested in a wide range of access and targeted support services to include transportation, meals, counseling, health services, and technology resources. These supports helped ensure that students could fully engage in learning while addressing the needs that often impact academic performance. Data was collected across each of the support areas and will be incorporated into future planning as we continue to evaluate program effectiveness, measure return on investment, and better understand the long-term impact of summer learning on student outcomes. The budgeted allocation for summer learning was approximately $3.02 million and supported the implementation of instructional programs and student services across the district. At this time, I will turn the presentation over to Dr. Corbett, who will review both our summer learning metrics and evaluation results.
Thank you, Ms. Pottinger, for outlining the plan and the budget that supported summer learning. I'll now turn to what was spent and review the preliminary results of the program's implementation. As of August 1st, local summer school expenses totaled over $3 million, which is approximately $143,600 above the approved amount. The overage was concentrated primarily in transportation and campus police, while lower spending in other areas offset much of that additional cost. To connect spending with the district's primary summer school goals, we calculated a preliminary cost of a little more than $1,000 per promotion or credit earned. This provides a consistent benchmark for future planning and resource decisions. With that financial context in place, let's now look at what the district received for that investment, beginning with how instruction was implemented and then moving to student participation and outcomes. We began by examining how summer instruction was implemented. 88 classroom observations were conducted, with the observations distributed fairly evenly across 3 levels. Most classrooms were using district-approved lessons. 92% were rated fully or partially evident. Nearly 74% of classrooms were fully focused on the intended instructional objective, which indicates that even if the district lesson was not fully utilized, the intended instructional standard was the focus of the lesson. The greatest variability observed was in pacing. 56% of classrooms were fully aligned with district pacing guidance, while 32% were partially aligned. Overall, teachers were generally using the intended materials and focusing students on the intended learning. We also examined the student engagement rating within each instructional mode. Engagement was strongest when students were completing packet or workbook tasks or when teacher-led support was evident. Platform and computer-based observations were more mixed. About half were fully engaged and about half were partially engaged. In grades 3 through 8, over 1,600 students participated in summer learning, with 5th grade representing the largest group. Average attendance was 82.1%, and almost 66% attended at least 90% of the instructional days. Attendance was stronger among elementary students, who averaged 86%, compared with 77.7% among middle school students. Among students with student to spring to summer measures of academic progress, or MAP, matched pairs, average performance increased in both reading and math. In reading, 56.8% of students increased their score. In math, 54.8% of students increased their scores. They were modest but positive average gains over a short instructional period. Overall, 28.2% of elementary and middle summer school students reached level 2 or above on the GMAS, which is the Georgia Milestones Assessment System, math assessment. The pass rate was 26.3% in grades 5 and 30.9% in grade 8. Just a reminder that this data only reflects students who attended summer school, and we do not have English Language Arts GMAS results due to the implementation of new English Language Arts standards last school year. Of those students with documented promotion decisions, 1,471 were promoted, while 119 students who attended summer school were retained. The elementary promotion rate was 94.6% compared with 90.3% in middle school. Fifth grade had the highest promotion rate, while sixth grade had the lowest. At the high school level, 928 students participated. 10th grade was the largest group. The subject counts represent course enrollments, so a student may appear in more than one subject. Math had the largest enrollment with almost 500 students. Average attendance was 88.7%, so overall, high school attendance was a relative strength of the program. High school course completion was also strong. The course pass rate was 91.1%, the average final grade was 83.4, and students earned 1,206 credits. The end of course results for summer school students indicate that overall, 21.4% reached level 2 or above. Biology had the highest, and algebra was the lowest, with students scoring at 2 or above. Finally, the academic outcomes were supported by substantial operating infrastructure. Across 15 sites, over 80,000 meals were served. Transportation costs were approximately $797,000, but that reflects 203 employees and more than 24,800 reported hours, which helps explain why transportation was a major budget pressure point. Counselors documented more than 3,000 student contacts. Nursing staff documented over 400 visits and responded to 32 emergency situations. Technology staff deployed over 1,700 devices and provided more than 700 assists. These services were not peripheral to the program. They were part of the infrastructure required to provide safe, accessible, and continuous summer learning. Taken together, these findings show broad participation, positive promotion, and credit attainment outcomes. Now I'll turn it back to Ms. Pottinger to close with summer 2027 priorities.
Thank you. As we are just beginning to prepare for the planning of summer 2027, today we're not making specific commitments, but instead outlining our priorities. So our first priority is alignment in the promotion and retention policy with our strategic plan, House bills, and strategic waivers. That's going to look at an evaluation of our promotion and retention policy and should be upcoming within the next few months. We're going to start that work. Priority 2 is increase the financial transparency within all of our departments for summer school. So having the ROI process with the departments, especially those that were over budget for our summer school, and planning sessions with each department using data-driven decision-making. Our third priority is improve access and communication, communicating summer opportunities earlier and to include our programs, evaluate participation trends and program availability, continue reviewing transportation and summer school model options, and increasing awareness of available programs and pathways for students and families. And on that, we're also going to organize an additional payroll workshop for our coordinators to ensure that they're all in alignment. So in closing, Summer Learning 2026 provided meaningful opportunities for thousands of students across the district. The data showed strong participation, measurable academic growth, and high promotion rates, successful credit recovery options, and extensive student support. At this time, we do recognize, though, the strongest measure of success is what happens after the students return to school. So as we move forward, our focus will be on strengthening consistency, alignment of promotion and retention, and making data-informed decisions so that summer learning continues to be a strategic investment in student success. Thank you.
Ms. Campbell?
Okay, so bear with me here for just a second. I didn't really expect this to go maybe the way that it went, based on, I guess, the data that we got back. So I guess I'll ask some questions to start with. So did you believe that summer learning was a success by and large, on the whole?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, I mean,
Our goal is promotion and retention. The theory of action is that our specialists, they create the curriculum. They kind of, certify this is what we need to be doing during this time, and this is the pace we need to go. So looking at the classrooms, the students were engaged. The teachers were primarily doing the lessons that the district laid out for them. So that data supports that theory of action, that the students were promoted based on what the specialists set aside as saying it was important for them to know.
fair,
And Ms.
go ahead.
No, I was just going to add, I think operationally, yes, we saw success. I think what we've learned in conversations with the board, those are things, and also from our own evaluation of summer learning and how we have implemented and communicated summer learning, we certainly saw some success. I think also from an academic standpoint and outcomes, I think obviously there are some successes that we saw from a promotion retention, but certainly there are a number of opportunities for us to improve. I think from a GMAS standpoint, we are obviously awaiting that information, but also the other piece that I think is important from an operational standpoint that we did this year was administer the MAP assessment so that we could have some additional data points to measure if students were, in fact, demonstrating growth. But we also recognize that this is a very short window of time to close some of those gaps. And so that's the reality that we are navigating with the summer learning.
Totally understand. And let me start by saying that it seems like operationally it went very smoothly. I commend the removal of barriers that have existed maybe in the past to students learning. But with both of those things working so well, or inarguably so well, I guess when we say that the goal of summer learning is promotion and retention, promotion was definitely successful, but was learning successful? And so that's kind of where I'm at. I mean, it sounds like, just correct me if I'm wrong here, but 65.8% of elementary and middle school students attended at least 90% of the program. That's only 16 days long. Even our own policy states that anything less than 90% leads to, bad academic outcomes. Middle school and high school are about the same. For elementary and middle, the reading map growth was only 2.2. On and on. 71.8% failed to reach a level 2 on the GMAS math retest. But 92.5% were promoted. High school was the most alarming to me. As we talk about earning credits, I don't mean to sound stark, but I think we need to be very clear-eyed about this and honest about what we're seeing here. One of the reasons that I know another board member were wanting an audit of summer learning, and I think Twilight was even mentioned, is because we care that we're not just offering a second chance at promotion, we're offering a second chance at learning. And while mastery in 16 weeks may not be possible because of how far behind they are, exigent circumstances, et cetera, I understand and appreciate, that does not give us an excuse to then promote a child who isn't ready. High school, 91% pass rate an average final grade of 83.4, 1,200 credits earned. Almost 75% of all the grades were A's and B's, yet only 21.4% of the end of course results were level 2 or higher. And for the record, level 2 is just developing learner, which means, again, correct me if I'm wrong, 78.6% did not reach level 2. That is alarming. That is terrifying. That is a beginning learner. So, I mean, how are we calling this academic recovery when promotion doesn't necessarily equal that they're ready for the next class where they're going to be tasked with equally, if not more, intense subject matter that's going to require them to have these things mastered? I mean, how do we reconcile a 91% pass rate of summer school with so many A's and B's?
So if I may, just for clarification, I want to make sure that as we look at the data, some of those data points are not apples to apples comparison. And so when we say that students earned however many credits and earned an A or B in their summer learning course, that is not a direct correlation to the GMAS assessments. There are only 4 courses that are assessed at the high school, and we may have offered upwards of 40 different courses during summer school. And so those students that did not take a state assessed course completed a local assessment, and those local assessments were common assessments that we administer through one of our platforms. So to that end, there is some level of consistency with regards to the assessment that we administer for those students during summer school. But I just wanted to clarify that those data points are not necessarily directly connected.
Yes, and if I can also just add, I would characterize this as progress, not success. To my understanding, this is the first year we've even had data to even know what summer school was. So to me, that in and of itself is a success. And now we have a baseline for comparison moving forward. I think it's also important to understand that even though a student may not pass a class during the regular school year, the whole class grade is measured by several standards that a teacher must teach. It does not necessarily mean that a kid was not successful on every single standard. A kid could just need more attention on 2 standards, and that would actually bring that student up to proficiency. I think a lot of times people see summer school as an opportunity to relearn the entire curriculum, and that quite simply may not be the case. It may just be looking at extrapolating the most important standards that need to be taught, or the standards in which a child has shown a deficit in, not necessarily like you're starting from day 1 in the school year and you're teaching the entire curriculum and the entire standards. That would be unrealistic, obviously. So I think it just requires a little bit of a mind shift about summer school being a targeted intervention, a short period of time in which kids have an opportunity to demonstrate learning on key objectives that will allow them to demonstrate that they can be promoted, if that makes sense.
It does, and again, let me say, I appreciate the audit of this. I hope that in the future, I know ELA scores are not, it's not our fault that we don't know what they are and they're still forthcoming, but overall, no matter how we nuance these numbers, when you have an overall pass end of course, and our standard is a level 2 or greater, a developing learner, just right above a beginning learner. Developing learner, if I remember correctly, means that they need additional support to get through the next school year. I just find it troubling that only 21.4% that took it, even if it wasn't their targeted need, made a 2 or better. I mean, that's, I mean, I can't believe, am I the only one that feels that way? I feel like it's alarming a little. So I hope that next year, if we do this again, I'm glad we had the data, that we actually look at some of the specifics when it comes to what students are being targeted for in this, realm for how we help them advance. But I do not want to celebrate promoting students who are not ready. So,
And to your point, and I appreciate that feedback, and our team will continue to focus on how we improve the summer school experience. One of the pieces that was important for us, rather than an audit, we chose to take the program evaluation route so that we have an opportunity to look at the quality of instruction during summer school. As we know, that has been something that the committee and the board has inquired about, and we acknowledge that summer school provides unique learning or blended opportunity, but yet the quality of instruction is important. And so our continued review of summer school implementation will focus on the quality of the learning experience so that our students are able to demonstrate their learning beyond the 180 days of the calendar year.
Thank you. Can we go back to the beginning slides, please? You kind of went through it really quickly. Okay, slide number on page 5, I think. Okay, we can start there. Okay, first, just for clarity, you said the campus police and transportation costs are what caused overage. Can you put that in a little context for us?
Sure. I believe the campus police we did not budget for in the budget. Is that correct?
So we made some adjustments after the first week of summer school, as we had a number of our school safety officers on campus, but we recognized that we were able to utilize our existing SROs and not have as many SSOs because we had combined sites. So that additional support at the beginning, we were able to reduce. That's not something that we had planned for initially in the budget process, but that is where you see the additional costs associated with campus police.
Okay. First, I want to say that I live in an area where Myers Middle is nearby and Johnson High School. And during the summer, when I see students just kind of milling around doing nothing, it always aggravates me because I think, my goodness, wouldn't it be wonderful if those students could be in school? So I'm always pushing for summer school because that gives our students more time on task. And time on task is what makes the difference over the long run in how well most students do. I've always been an advocate for changing the whole model to year-round school, so we're not talking about regular school and summer school. So I wish we could go to school 210 days instead of 180, so that the kids would have more time on task. But in at least a year-round situation, you have like a 45 days on, 10 days off, so that summer school is not some distinct catch-up time, but we're rolling merrily along, continuously trying to improve over the years. And I haven't done any research recently, but when I was more involved on the other side of things, it seemed like districts and states that took this model seriously and stuck with it long enough to get all the kinks out showed tremendous differences in how their student achievement went. So I will always push for summer school, but more so for continuous school all year round with breaks as needed for employee mental health and that kind of thing. I want to know how much money we saved by 1,467 students not being retained. Because, of course, every time you retain a child, you're adding an extra year to that child's educational life, and does anyone have any or that's something in the future? If you know, I'd just like to know what that cost would be adding to our budget, needing to.
We can add that
Reteach.
to the final report.
Okay, all right. And the last thing, I've always worried about grades not being calibrated. I think I mentioned this, Dr. Watts, a few years ago, that when I was the principal, I took that task on, and I'm telling you, it was murder, because teachers do not like to hear that they are teaching, say, a sixth grade English language arts class, but the instruction is really at a fourth grade level. They're not teaching at a sixth grade level. Now, this teacher over here might be, but this one over here isn't. How do we calibrate things so that every teacher understands? And you would think the standards, if we have the standards there, that of course you're all teaching the same, but it doesn't work out like that, because some teachers teach with a robust, rigorous, expectation, and others. So that's the human condition to a point, but anything we can do, Mr. Butler, to get our grades calibrated so that an A stands for an A with everybody, and a B is a B for everybody. However we're able to do that going forward, that certainly would help in terms of knowing what does this A really represent for this child, and are we just, mollifying them, or did they actually achieve an excellent outcome in their work? So I'll stop there for now and let somebody else have a turn.
Dr. Howard.
Yes, sitting here reflecting, I had a child in 8th grade who failed the CRCT test in math, and she was to be retained. But thank God for summer school, she was able to be promoted. Sometimes we can't allow a test score to identify a child's ability. From high school, she went on to Clark Atlanta. From Clark Atlanta, transferred to Kennesaw State. Now she's an educator in the system. So if we determine a test score to determine a child's ability, for example, when we say things like the child can't read, that's not necessarily true. I might be in the 3rd grade and I might be reading on a 2.5 grade level. Doesn't mean that I can't read. So we need to have summer school. I am very pro summer school, because my child could have sat an entire year in the 8th grade based on her test score on the Georgia CRCT test. But my question is, I just wanted to share that. My question is, how are we supporting incoming 2nd graders who have been promoted to 2nd grade with the mirror scores that reflects a kindergarten grade level? Because we must provide a solid foundation from kindergarten to 2nd, so we won't have these issues along the way, and that more students won't be enrolled in summer school because they are functioning on a 3rd grade level once they enter 3rd grade. But in some instances, we are actually moving students along who are unprepared without that basic foundation.
So I'll just offer just a very brief response, just as a reminder that at the beginning of the year, and we're actually underway with our universal screener, and those students that are identified as having any significant reading deficiencies, after review of their data, we provide them with a tiered reading plan. And so we're excited about also the work underway with Ignite tutoring that will also support those students who are demonstrating some difficulties in reading.
Yeah, we just need to really, if a parent requests that their child repeats a grade, a principal should not have the authority to tell that parent no.
And so I appreciate that feedback. I think
I will say this, we know now, starting next year, is state law, so that can no longer happen. because that's why the students are struggling in third grade. We're pushing them in third grade, and they're performing below grade level. So I wish you all would look at their mirror scores for every incoming second grade to see what grade level those second graders are on, to ensure that when they are promoted to third grade, that they are functioning on their grade level.
Can I assure you that that is happening? Like, we are looking at students' mirror grades. We are providing interventions. But do we pass students along that still don't meet the threshold of proficiency? Yes, we do, for a myriad of reasons. But one of the reasons is not because we do not provide interventions and support. With the intervention and support, the student still at times will not reach proficiency. So it's a decision for the board and for the district to take on around how many times do we retain a student. You know, the research is very, there's a lot of different research pointing in both directions about retention of students and is it effective or not. But I just want to assure you that we are looking at data. Interventions are happening in the classroom, tutoring, students getting pulled out for different interventions. It's not the absence of intervention. It possibly could be the quality of the intervention. We don't know how many of these students didn't have a teacher at one point in time in their K-8, K-6. When you miss a teacher for an entire year, it's almost impossible to recover from that. Maybe you didn't have a quality teacher. There's so many different factors that go into whether a student is promoted or retained. I agree with you wholeheartedly. It can't always singularly be a test score, because a student does not have control over the conditions in which they are in for the year in terms of quality. You can offer a thing, but if it's not a good thing, then it's just a thing, right? You can pull a kid out and give them an intervention, but if it's not a good intervention, you might as well not have the intervention. So I just think it's much more complicated than probably time for us to discuss today. But it's not the absence of the discussion. It's not the absence of looking into these things and the discussions that need to have happen. And even with the state law change, there is still opportunity to promote kids with a plan. So that's not the answer either.
Yeah, and I'll just offer this. This is precisely the direction of the summer school sort of conclusion, which is our next work is to review our promotion and retention policy. Currently, and just to reference the second grade, or at least first through fifth grade, those additional measures are considered for promotion in addition to their grades. And so that's our existing policy. Also want to remind the board that because we are a strategic waiver district, we have strategic waivers around promotion and retention. And so those are things that we want to bring back to the board so that you can think about what we want that to look like moving forward. Also, there are statutory requirements from House Bill 1193 that we'll need to take into consideration as it relates to first grade readiness. And so all of those things are part of the next work and perhaps for a broader conversation with the board at a later date. But know that that work is underway in terms of the review and the revision of our promotion and retention policy.
Thank you for that. Just quickly, so then we can move on, I just want to clarify. So the data that you presented today, this is just for, because we've had a number of summer programs, but this is just for the students who are required to come to summer school to try and advance, correct? Okay, so I just want to clear that, because I do think it's important as we're talking about summer school that we also, we've got a lot of programs that are for students who, just want those other activities, and Oatland and Massey and all those other great summer programs. Thank you for providing the data, and to Dr. Watts' point, this is not something we probably have done a very effective job at monitoring in the past, so I'm very grateful that we are now giving it a closer eye. A couple things I think would be interesting to look at as we continue to monitor would be tracking the cohort of students that were in summer school and seeing how they do. So great, glad to see that's already on your radar screen. And then also, do you look at how many of the students have attended summer school in the past?
I did not have that data available, but when we did focus groups, I did ask the students, and when I did interviews, have you attended summer school before? And only a very small percent attended summer school before.
Okay.
And many of them qualitatively said, I'm not doing this again. So I do think some you can't measure students' motivation and in a quantitative way in this methodology, but I do believe that them going to summer school, I think qualitatively they expressed that they did not want to do it again and that they would work harder next year.
Okay.
So
Well-
that longitudinal study is definitely going to be beneficial.
Okay. Well, I just think it would be interesting, like, we have students who every year come into summer school. That's probably a pretty good indication that something else needs to happen in there or that promotion's not happening. I do share some of Ms. Campbell's concerns. I knew, looking at the data, that she would have those questions, and appreciate you lifting those up because I had similar questions, but we've been there already. And one last little question. How long are the class periods during summer school for each subject? Because I know you said some students are there for multiple subjects.
Yeah, that varied across their grade levels and
Okay.
the sites.
Well, because given that it is a short duration, I know students can only sit in class for so long, but just do we need to look at either a longer duration or?
They
I don't know,
did
something-
provide them opportunities to go outside, and
Oh, good.
and they liked those opportunities.
Yeah,
They,
yeah.
they were expressing so they do have those breaks, and a lot of times we would come in and they would be taking a brain break.
Yeah.
So they do have the opportunities for some outside time and some brain breaks
Okay.
and lunch.
Okay, yeah, and final comment, and then I'll get you, Ms. Hall, and then hopefully can move on. Very interesting to see that the least engaged time was when they were on a computer. So I think that's lessons for moving forward. Ms. Hall?
First of all, I really think that this needs to be when the whole board is here. This is so important that everybody on the board needs to be apprised of this. So again, Mr. Morse, I don't know, our informal time at board days, to me, that's when something this important needs to be brought before everybody. I see Ms. Gillens is here and representing special ed. And I just think back to that's another scenario. I had parents complaining to me. I mean, I would have children who were retained twice. And you would think, okay, then we need to assess this child. Is this a candidate for special ed? Is this a child who needs a 504 plan? Why are there so many black children who are deemed special ed ready? All of those kinds of problems come up in the life of a school year. And I'm not going to draw you in it today, Ms. Gillens, but I've literally seen where you can't retain. At some point, something has to change for that child. And if it's not, if the child is not learning to read after all the interventions we put forward, retention, perhaps twice, where do we go from there if they don't seem to fit into the learning disability? There has to be a learning disability, but where does that fit? And how does that fit with families who do not want that, who see that as a label against them? So the more we can find out, this is a national problem. Every person I can think of I ever worked with across this country, their districts are having problems with children American children reading. And so it's not something that's going to go away. We're going to have plenty of research on this. So don't be despondent or don't fall into despair because we are where we are. It's a problem, and we're going to have to figure out how to solve it. So I thank you for all the effort you put into this, and Mr. Butler, your whole department.
Dr. Howard Hall, quickly. and then
Just
let's
quickly,
move on.
what I remember most about the miracle in Mississippi, those students were retained between kindergarten and third grade. They must have that solid foundation, kindergarten through third, because once they reach fourth and sixth and ninth, then it's a problem. That is why I question about second grade readiness. You're looking at someone that repeated first grade, someone who was enrolled in speech. It was me, but I excelled by repeating first grade. Now, if there's a learning disability, of course, there are IEPs and 504s and different things that can help the student along the way. But still, with even having those plans, we must continue with the rigor.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
Tanya, it was Mississippi's decision, the government was behind that. That
Yes.
makes a difference too.
Yes,
The
yes,
school
it did.
district didn't do that in isolation. The whole legislature decided we have to do this. So if Georgia can come up with something that, you know,
So we can come up with our own retention policies. That's not something that I think, we don't have to have the state to do. We can
No,
revisit
no,
retention
no,
locally.
No, but I'm saying the power of their
Sure.
support.
It is helpful, absolutely. But retention is something that has come to the board on occasion lightly. I am very open to revisiting that. I came from a previous state that we looked at it at third, fifth, and eighth grade. And I think it had a positive impact on students' motivation as well as their academic performance. But I also want to say that there are implications for that. The number of kids, that's an additional year. You might have to look at more teachers. There are other things to factor in that you have to be thoughtful about the approach. And it's not just as simple as retain a kid. So I'm open to it. I invite that conversation. I invite the planning that will take place, and I think it will have a positive impact. But I also want to caution us against feeling really good about an idea without thinking about how it's operationalized. Because I think you all have seen that happen in recent weeks, that we can love an idea, but how it shows up when it hits the ground is a different story.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right, and I'm excited about the upstream solutions that we are focused on to hopefully make make that a clearer path for students being ready to go. So we will turn it over. This is the part that I'm really excited about because I've been asking about it like for 6 years. So, and Dr. Watts has promised that with the new strategic plan, we would reevaluate the choice program, and I am very excited to have this conversation. So I'll be quiet and turn it over to y'all. Thank you.
Awesome. So we too are excited to begin our conversation about the future of our choice program experience. But before we do that, again, want to thank not just my team, but Strategy, Innovation, and Performance, as well as school leadership for their collaboration in a successful summer program. Certainly a lot that we are learning and will help us move forward, both in summer, but also in our promotion and retention work that's already underway. So again, we're excited about the future of our choice program. I'm joined by this afternoon, Amy Perry, our Director of CTAE and Workforce Development, as well as Dr. Jessica Horton, our Choice Program Coordinator. And I want to quickly begin by framing our conversation today, by sharing today is a redesign preview and what we will propose as a measured approach to our launch. So this is not a finished redesign by any stretch of the imagination, and what we're not also asking the committee to make any final recommendations or decisions on the redesign process. But what we've learned is that when we engage the committee as well as the board early in the process, we are able to understand or help the board, the committee understand the problem of practice, sort of grapple with some of those assumptions, identify some of the risk associated with the different paths so that we're able to collectively provide clarity around what the choice program design process looks like. So that is our intent today. I wanted to make sure that I frame the beginning of our presentation in that way. Ms. Grabowski, you alluded to the strategic plan alignment, and certainly spot on with that. As you know, this is a priority throughout our strategic plan. It is one of the ways that we translate unlimited possibilities into a more predictable and meaningful experience for our scholars and our families. So the first anchor is priority 1.5, ensuring access. We want to ensure that every student across our districts experience high quality learning, and that is connected to their future interests and future opportunities. The second anchor is priority 3.1 around reclaiming enrollment. We know that families make choices based on not just the quality of the program, but really the experience they have around the selection process. And so we want to make that a point of emphasis in our conversation today as well. And then the third anchor is priority 3.2, elevating internal and external stakeholder voice. We will leverage this as an opportunity for a first pass at some feedback, and we'll continue to map out our engagement with other stakeholders here in the district as well as with our families and the community as well. So those things are important and part of our design work over the next few months. I want to also give the committee an opportunity to think about the guided discussion, which, if it is feasible for you to sort of put those questions and conversations at the end, that would be helpful. But here are the questions for your consideration, and we'll bring these back up at the end of the presentation as well. First one is, what should we protect as we redesign the choice program experience? Secondly, where do you see the greatest risk? I think I mentioned that earlier. Thirdly, which stakeholders must be included? We have some ideas of how we want to create that journey map for internal and stakeholders, internal and external stakeholders, but certainly your feedback is helpful as well. And then, as we have been throughout the last several years, really taking a deliberate approach around the return on investment and measuring our impact. So that will be important from a transparency standpoint. Again, these are things that are important for us from a strategic planning standpoint. I have them here. You have them, but they'll show back up at the end of the presentation. So here's the quick case for change and what we're trying to solve, both in the immediate and in the future. And first of all, we're asking the committee to take a look at a few different things, but what we're solving for in the immediate is a scheduling challenge and opportunity. We know that there's a practical calendar change opportunity that helps schools address some of the challenges that we've been experiencing from a school planning cycle, from a student seat perspective, course requests, and then just a final master schedule completion. And so we'll bring that forward to you. You'll hear from Dr. Horton around what that has presented. But the calendar review, coupled with the launch of our strategic plan work, set in motion a broader set of design questions that have been going on for quite some time. And so we'll bring that to you as well from a program design and designation. You have heard choice program for quite some time. You're familiar with CTAE pathways. And then you've heard a new term over the last year or two, and that is signature learning experience. And so it's important for us to provide some distinction, but also give you an opportunity to better understand what we are thinking from a planning standpoint. So the other piece is the access. This is not in any ways intended to explore a complete revision of the eligibility criteria for choice programs or select choice programs. So I wanted to make sure that we are aware of that. But it is designed to ensure that every student has a high-quality, predictable, meaningful experience that prepares them for the future. And so what does that mean? And then finally, we want to address some of the what we may have heard in some areas, which is a fragmented family experience. And so these are the things that we're solving for as well as innovating. I want to make it very clear that the case for change is not that everything is broken. In fact, nothing may be broken, but how do we strengthen our choice program experience? How do we strengthen our choice program opportunities and programs so that we can provide those future-ready opportunities for every single student in the district? So very quickly, Dr. Horton and Ms. Perry will walk us through the immediate work that needs to happen. That's the update of our application cycle. We'll also get your feedback around what are those things that are launch ready, which means for a school year 27-28 that we need to be thinking about. And thirdly, what are those things that we need to be more mindful of that we want to set aside for a more comprehensive redesign. And so that is part of what we want to shape our work. And so we'll share a little bit of those three paths today. Very quickly, and I think after this, I'm going to call up Dr. Horton to walk us through the admissions timeline kind of readjustment. This slide simply shows you the three different paths that you'll hear from them here in just a moment. And I want to really bring your attention down to the readiness rule. That is the piece that's most important for the conversation today. So we've got this immediate cycle. We've got these two redesign horizons that we're considering. But it's important to note that we want to be mindful of what is operationally ready, what is budget considerate, as well as what's clear to families. Because if the proposed change cannot meet those conditions, then we need to be mindful of our launch and our redesign and where it lives in the next few months. Okay? So with that, I'm going to turn over to Dr. Horton, who's going to walk us through the immediate update of the application cycle and how that helps us with some of the scheduling friction that we have experienced.
Good afternoon. So before I talk about how we're proposing to shift our timeline, I'm going to just give a little background information on how it stands now, how we traditionally operate. Traditionally, applications open around the first week of January in conjunction with our traditional Student Success Expo. We typically give families 14 to 15 days to get in their applications, and that is a very, very tight timeline to explore all the great programs we have. Families are rushing from open house to open house. So that is our the first indication that we need to reconsider when we open those applications. Then traditionally, we review the applications at the end of January and through February. That's when we hold auditions for Savannah Arts Academy and Garrison School of the Arts middle grades. And then we have the lottery typically the first to second week of March, and registration closes for that first group of seated students near the end of March. And at that point, we're looking at spring break, and our scheduling teams have already been meeting. They've already tried to plan master schedules, and so they're kind of behind because they don't know what students are going to be coming into their building and what those students are going to need. So what we've proposed is to shift the application window to provide almost an 8-week, about a 7-week application window. That gives families almost 2 months to look at all of our programs, to visit the schools, talk to other families who are currently enrolled, students who are currently enrolled, and really get to know our programs and know what might be the best fit for their student. Then we would review from January 11th to the 25th. Auditions would be moved up just a little bit And then our lottery would run February 17th, which is about 3 weeks earlier than it normally runs. The first group of registrations would close March 5th, and that would give our scheduling teams, our information specialists, our principals, that would give them a solid 3 extra weeks, maybe even 4, to start preparing their master schedules. So that's our expected benefit, is 1 additional month of usable, placeable placement information for master schedule planning. That also helps us know about our staffing and our student placement. So one thing that we're looking at is what criteria we can look at to see what changes we can make now and what will need to be further developed for school year 28-29. So the criteria that we looked at were having leadership approval, having clear rationale for every decision that we make, and making sure that that rationale is clear, understandable, and makes good sense to our families. We do not want any access barriers that are unintended to families. We want to make sure that they understand the process. We want to make sure that our system and our schools are ready for the changes, and we want to make sure that we consider, of course, budget, staffing, transportation, and technology plans. So what we've come up with is that in 27-28, the things that can be changed can be communicated before applications open this November, if the timeline change is approved. These things would require limited budget impacts or staffing changes. Most importantly, it improves the clarity, criteria, and family experience. It does not require any changes, any major changes to transportation or facilities. And then decisions and changes that would come a little later would be things that require board-level action or budget development, changes to access models, locations, or staffing, things that need different considerations with engagement, and we want to make sure that we are reviewing everything with an equitable lens, and it should be communicated. These are decisions that should be communicated a full cycle ahead. And now I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Perry.
Thank you. So I get to try to work this. Okay. Talk a little bit about how we're going to begin the redesign and some of the conversations that we've had. We think it is very important to clearly define what all of these opportunities are. We've got CTAE programs, we've got choice schools, we've got choice programs, and now we're defining signature learning experiences. So one of the first things that we will work through is clearly defining what the opportunities are. We need to make sure that our choice program criteria is clear and that we are having signature learning experiences that expand access for all students. We've looked at several different school districts that offer choice or specialty programs. We've highlighted some external districts here that we may continue to look at, not to necessarily copy their model, but to adapt some of our practices to better work for our families. So you can see here DeKalb, Fulton, Duval, and Miami-Dade. You can see some of the things that they've been able to successfully do that we want to try to incorporate in our redesigned choice programs. We hope to have a more searchable program delivery, clear categories, visible wait lists for families, transparent timelines, family-facing application experiences that really speak to the family's journey in our schools and our choice program process. We want families to better understand each step as they go through their choices in our schools. And my last part is about the questions that are really going to guide and organize our redesign work. We've got 6 different categories of questions, and as we have listening sessions, surveys, pool data, working sessions, we want all of our work to tie back to these 6 different areas. So we want to be thinking about what actually counts as a choice program, choice school, a CTAE pathway in our schools, signature or other learning experiences and opportunities. We want to make sure that we think about access. Who is participating in our programs now? Why are others not? And what barriers exist? We need to look at admissions and then what our procedures are for students staying in programs where they may not need to continue. Program quality, we've got to look at our current choice programs. What standards must these programs meet to stay in place and be worth our investment? And a big one is just the family experience. Can families discover, compare, apply, and understand the decisions they're making, and really understand the timeline in real time? And then lastly, operations and accountability. Do timelines, data, technology, staffing, communication, and decision, is everything functioning as one system? Keeping our work focused on these questions will really help us focus on actionable outcomes for students. And now I'll hand it back to Mr. Butler.
And before we continue to move forward, I want to just remind, if you take a look at the program arc, I think that's an important piece that has some familiarity with the committee. Want to note that while those are interrelated, they are not interchangeable, and I think that is part of some of the clarity that we want to provide to students and families as we've had questions come up regarding who can access those opportunities. And so it will be important for us to think about that in the redesign process. Also just want to make note, and I know Ms. Perry can talk more about this, and we've had conversations around the modernization of our CTAE framework and what that means in terms of not only the experiences for our students in CTAE, but all of our students, and what that means for the state of Georgia and how we have already sort of launched that in motion. So I wanted to just bring that back to the top of your thinking so that you have some familiarity with previous conversations. I'll pause here because I know what we've shared has been quite a bit, and we have intentionally made it high level to give you an opportunity to provide any feedback. So with that, I'll turn it to you, Ms. Grabowski, if you all want to pause here for any questions or conversations.
First of all, this is going to please so many families, and it's going to help us as board members. All the calls we get when the season begins in January, the fact that you're going to move it back to November so that there's a much longer period of time, that in itself is revolutionary, and it's going to help the parents, and it's going to help us as board members also. So kudos on that. I'm going to wait until the other board members ask, because the other things I have are more specific about programs. Well, I'll ask one. Ms. Perry, is there a place on the website that lists all of our choice programs, CTAE programs, and SLE programs? Is there a place on the website?
Yes and no. There's not a place where they're listed side by side. We can certainly do that. There is a choice website, and then there's a CTAE, but maybe it would be helpful to, once we move forward with this, to put them.
They're both. No, I'm
Yes,
not.
they're
I'm not
there.
trying to
Yes,
have
ma'am.
y'all do any more work. So there is a place that
Yes.
people can go and see everything that's offered.
Yes,
Okay.
But they can't see it in the same place.
But you can't
Right.
see it the same place.
which is what I was saying. That
Well,
might be.
I mean, if it's an easy thing to do, then that's great to
hey,
me.
We will make it happen.
Okay, all right.
Ms. Hall, I
anything.
think that's a pretty easy transition for us. We've been working with the CTAE team to kind of get a more robust footprint on their overall multifunctional areas that they provide opportunities for students. choice is certainly its own standalone element. Technically, it's really leveled up to a full district-wide component. We want to be careful to make sure that folks understand that choice pathways, while they are heavily related to CTAE, they don't represent fully CTAE. So we got to make sure there's a strong distinction there. But you can easily go to our website in the Find It Fast tool, and you will get immediately to that choice website, which is very robust and has a full listing of every program that is
Okay.
currently offered. And we move that to the full marquee status when we go into program launch phase. And we've been having a lot of internal discussions about timeline over the years, and this is a big step forward for us, but we'll be poised to turn that on and flip the switch in tandem with any new timeline that is approved.
And I just want to echo that. Again, that's part of this conversation, what we take away. But just as a reminder, we want to be very deliberate about that because, again, we want to make sure there's clarity around choice, CTAE, but I think that's a part of the broader redesign in terms of the family experience that we talk about.
And there, Mr. Butler, question number 2, access. Who currently participates, who does not, and what barriers exist? Who is to answer that question? We board members answer? I mean, if I were to answer, I'd say I would think grades are the main barrier for a child, whether a child participates or not. But is it the board you're saying you want to answer these, or this is a question that's going to go out into the fuller community?
Yeah, no, certainly that's a question for the board to consider. Those are questions that we are considering as a design team and where we will engage other stakeholders, but certainly that's a part of the conversation as well.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Mr. Moss?
Oh, I was going to ask you to bring this slide up. Thank you very much. Your question, what should we protect as we redesign the choice program experience? So I looked on the website, and I know that this board has been discussing choice decisions for the last 12 years. There was a discussion when I first came on this board. So I decided to look at what our new, since Ms. Hall brought that up, what our new grade requirement is. Did you know that our new grade requirement is only a 75 average? Across the board. Every single one. It's a 75. Do you know what our requirement, our Lexile scores, I mean, whatever they are for math across the board is? It's, if you interpret it, it can be a grade lower than your grade, your present grade. Do you know what the discipline allowance is? 5. You can have 5 state-reported incidents. I was with a friend of mine last night, and we were discussing this, and he goes, "You guys are talking about this during what committee?" I said, "Academic excellence." If I want to protect anything, I want to protect. And when this decision was made, I do remember this. When this decision was made, it was made based on, we will study this, we will study the implications, and we will come back and we'll look at it. Well, I've seen the implications of this, and the math scores at the STEM Academy have gone down every year since. You cannot have kids coming into a STEM school who are not proficient at math. So if I want to protect anything, I want to protect that. I'm not saying that they all have to have A average, but 75, if you interpret 75, is that a C average? Yes. Really?
And I think just to piggyback on that, So the thing, and I'm also not sure if there's a full awareness, because you brought up the STEM Academy. It's not that it's just a STEM Academy, it is an accelerated curriculum.
Right,
It is a greatly accelerated curriculum. And to me, that's where and when this whole matrix thing came up, that was my concern going in, was for our schools, for our choice schools, with an accelerated program, I do think we need to, and Mr. Butler, I know you said at the beginning of this, we're not really getting into the matrix, but I think we're going there anyways, because I think it's something that we do need to evaluate, not this year, but for that full redesign, that we do need to look, we need to evaluate how the criteria are working and what's happening there. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump the line, but I just wanted to, because I think that
Yes.
is an
Yeah,
important
because
distinction.
because I also get those phone calls.
Yeah.
But the phone calls I get are from parents whose kids have gotten into these schools and are flunking out.
And flunking out, right. Can't make it, yeah. So I have definitely comments, but I'll continue going around. Ms. Campbell? Yeah. Did you have, are you good, Mr. Moss?
I'm good.
Okay, Ms. Campbell?
Back to what Mr. Moss was talking about, in 2023, when this new rubric was established, we were told, or I wasn't on the board then, but the board was told, especially when I believe Mr. Moss had asked publicly about rigor, that we would be getting data, that this new rubric was going to be something that would help us track success, especially since, before this meeting, I pulled up as much data over the years as I could find on the academic eligibility requirements. And it was an 80-plus GPA, and then at grade level MAP and SRI data then, all the way until it looks like 2023, when we did this new rubric. So before we talk about any of this other stuff, I would love to know what that data said, because the thing that I fear, just full disclosure here, is that if we don't have a basic level of rigor at every school and basic expectations on every child, no one's going to be able to get into programs where, we want all kids to succeed. We want them all to have the option to do something where they can thrive and do well. But if we don't know how they're doing with the lowered standards of 75 and decreased MAP scores and all of that, how do we know how well it's working? Do we know if we have access?
So we certainly have access to our student performance data, and we can study that. So we'll make note of that. But I also just want to, and we appreciate that the piece around the change that occurred, bringing that back to our discussion, because prior to that change, there was a grade point average of an 80. And there were, prior to that, some other eligibility data points that were in place for choice programming. I think some of the unintended consequences, and without going into great detail about how and why that change occurred, some of that had to do with the relationship between choice programs and CTAE. And so that's why it's important for us to make that clear distinction, because what we want to be mindful of in terms of students in our CTAE courses, that we are not providing them access to those opportunities. And so this is an opportunity for us to look at it in some different ways, and not just as choice program in one bucket, but how we think about it from choice schools, those specific programs that may not be CTAE related, so that we're applying the right type of eligibility for admission, enrollment, if there needs to be one, particularly for students who are transferring from another zone school. So I think that's important to note from a historical perspective, and I'll invite Dr. Horton if there are any other details, but just wanted to put that into context of why that occurred and what we see as potentially some of the unintended consequences associated with that.
I'm glad that we're not seeing the readiness GPA or MAP scores as an access barrier, because I think in some of these programs, as has been pointed out, to succeed, you need to have a level, right, to where you can achieve what needs to be done. I mean, I just read something from Thomas Sowell yesterday talking about how he thought he was prepared and he wasn't, and there's no amount of anything inside of you that can get you there until you know the material that you need to know first, right? And so we want that for kids, but the other side of the coin is that either kids are failing out or crying over their homework because they don't know what to do and how to do it, or we water down the curriculum and then all the kids who are there for this special choice program aren't going to get what they need. So I do think it's important that we keep rigor and we keep some of the standards there. One other question that I had is the signature experience. So I like the idea. I like setting it back further where they have longer to apply. I think a lot of these things are great. I have no issue with this. What I do worry about, though, is, I mean, I see some of the things that we're solving for, but is there a reason that this is a priority? I guess I kind of worry about the baseline experience that we're going for, and after seeing summer school report and, you know, going into next year, are we still focusing on a baseline experience, or are we going to start plugging signature experiences and choice and CTAE and hoping that's the draw?
Yep, so I want to be very clear that the baseline experience and the instructional infrastructure work comes before this. So you've heard about the baseline experience. We've defined what that baseline experience is for every student in every school. We have rolled out our instructional infrastructure. That is the priority. Part of what we wanted to bring to this committee today is really, again, a preview. And while there is one immediate sort of proposal in the application cycle, I want to be very clear that we're taking a very measured approach. Not only because we recognize that some of this requires a heavier lift, but because we also recognize that what's most important right now in terms of launch is our instructional infrastructure. So I want to be very clear about that. But we also want to make sure that we have enough time so that in the comprehensive redesign for 2028, 2029, we are primed to provide these predictable, meaningful signature experiences for students. And we know that there's a lot of work that goes into that, but we didn't want to sort of bring this to you right before the school year. As you heard Dr. Horton mention, there are some things that we've got to do in a full calendar year prior to, so that we have the communication for families at the beginning of the year. And because we're already past that, the one thing that we want to bring forward is that application cycle update. And if there are other things that you all see as an opportunity for us to do now, recognizing that we don't have a full calendar year, what are those things that we might want to consider now in terms of refining and strengthening?
I am relieved to hear that. I believe that. That's amazing. I hope that more kids get the opportunity to participate in some of these experiences with rigor, and we do get the baseline experience right. And I know that we are working on that, so I'm glad to hear that that is still the priority going forward.
Dr. Watts, do you want to chime in before I go to Dr. Howard Hall?
I was looking out at Dr. Barnes, and his head was going like that. I just want to reiterate and double stamp everything that Mr. Butler said. The work is about the baseline experience. We will take small bites at this apple to get it right, but if we don't get the foundational baseline experience right, it won't be nothing that we sit on top of it will be right. So I just want to double stamp that is our focus for this year, and we will take bites at the apple, such as moving the timeline up and things like that, but I want to level set on expectations that this is not work that I'm going to say will be completed at the end of this year, because it very well may not be.
Dr. Howard Hall?
So you think you can dance, but if you don't have an 80% GPA, you couldn't go to Savannah Arts and dance. So I understand the 75 grade point average. Take Woodville Tompkins, school located in the neighborhood where I was literally born and raised. students can walk to school but can't go due to the rigor. So when we talk about baseline, again, K through third. If we can get it right K through third, more students will be eligible to attend those schools. Woodville Tompkins offer welding, culinary arts, firefighting, and so many more. I had a nephew that could take a car apart, they have auto mechanics, and put it back together, but he would have never had the opportunity to attend Woodville Tompkins due to that grade point average. So with that being said, let's get it, like my grandmother would always say, born 1912, get it right the first time. It starts the minute they enroll with us. If it's 3-year-old program, 4, 5, we have to get it right between K and third. So we won't be having these conversations now about students not prepared. I agree with the 75 grade point average, I do. STEM, I understand, that's you're looking at the mathematics and all of that, but when you look at other tracks at Savannah Arts, so you think you can dance, you can sing, you can draw, but you can't come here because your GPA is not what we think it should be. And I can go on and on, but I just had to get that out because it's not offering, we say choice for who? Choice means choice for many, not for a few.
So I think we're going to probably go back around the horseshoe. And I hear you, Dr. Howard Hall. I think Savannah Arts also has an accelerated curriculum. Every single class is honors or AP. So ever since Savannah Arts was established, there's been this ongoing debate, is it a, college prep school or is it an art school? And it's trying to be both, and is that what it's supposed to be? And so I think all those things are probably the next step of this, and so I would encourage us to try and provide feedback on where we are now, but also obviously that, because it's very important, and that is an ongoing conversation, and I hope that it's that we expand those programs where Savannah Arts isn't the only place that has an amazing dance program, and so then we just expand those opportunities more, and so I appreciate the question about the baseline and the response from our team. But I don't think it's an either or, it's an and, because choice schools are a part of our identity as a district.
Yes.
And so I think it's important as we move our baseline, as we increase our baseline and the consistency of our baseline experience, that we also increase the consistency of our choice schools. So I think they rise together. So I appreciate that we have to have our hyper focus on the baseline where it should be. But I'm glad we're not kicking this can down the road at the same time, because there are some just logistical things that I think this will help tremendously. So I'm glad we are moving the timeline. I do have a couple of, and I'm really focused right now on the process, because I think that's where you are right now, like looking at the nuts and bolts of the process. So a couple of questions along that. With the shift in the schedule to November, how does that align with the middle of the year testing schedule?
So the really great thing is we can take in applications. The applications will be on file. So applications don't get tied to the data until we tie it. So what we do is we wait till that window is over and the SIS department uploads the files, and then the applications are matched to the students. So the testing window really doesn't, the application window is not affected by the testing window.
I guess what I'm wondering is if students are wanting to go visit a school, are they going to be wanting to visit a school in the middle of testing when it's more challenging to have those visits?
I think that they will still have, I think that the schools will still be able to accommodate that. The schools that I've talked to seem to prefer the earlier opportunities for students to visit.
Well, and I know some of our schools do a really good job of, like, they have once a month as a tour, and I would love to see all of our schools kind of get, because that, again, makes it so much easier for parents and families.
It does.
To be able to do
And
that.
one thing I'm really excited about is I'm really excited about the thought of families having holiday breaks to have these
Yes,
discussions.
absolutely. Yeah, I think that's, absolutely, I think that is absolutely wonderful. For students, particularly for this year,
Yes.
will that give adequate time for students who have to develop a portfolio to prepare?
I believe so, because the change in the audition window for Savannah Arts and Garrison is really just a few weeks. And I was the choice coordinator at Garrison for quite a while. And in my experience, most of those students are prepared by Christmas break.
I guess I'm thinking of the ones that have to submit a portfolio with their application, like for film or visual arts.
Yeah, but so they actually, they turn in their application, but then that portfolio is usually not due till about a week before the actual audition date when they come and
Okay, I
sketch.
thought they were the same. Okay. I've got 2 kids at Savannah Arts, so I didn't realize that. But they were auditioned, so. And then the big thing that I would really love us, and it may not be this year, it might be, but I would really encourage us as we look at this one of the big, Dr. Watts knows what I'm going to say. The biggest thing I
do too,
hear.
and I cannot wait. I've been waiting all
Okay,
week for
good.
this
I'm going to
question.
ask the question. I'm going to lob this to you then. The biggest
Okay.
thing we always hear is that choice is not a choice because you can only put one school. How are we addressing that?
Ms. Grabowski, our software is completely capable of letting students be on multiple wait lists or even get a seat and be on other wait lists.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Because
I've
that is-
waited for years to tell you that. The software engineer and I are very, very good friends now, and we have talked through all these different scenarios. We have some districts that only allow students to apply to one choice program, and then they have to participate in after lottery. We have some school districts that do it like we do. You get seated somewhere, you're not on any other wait list. My absolute personal favorite are the districts that you get seated in, if you get seated in your highest choice, so let's say you have 1, 2, 3, you get seated at number 3. You are waitlisted at number 1 and number 2.
So we're making that change now? This year?
With the permission of my superiors, yes. That can
Right.
happen. That can happen. If it is,
So that is, I am accustomed to a similar format in 2 different districts, and I advocate for that. We probably need to spend some time just talking through the pros and cons, but I definitely think it is up for consideration.
And I think
absolutely.
that's the piece that I want to just share, that part of that also requires some management sort of change on our end. So we want to do some testing around what that looks like
Okay.
so that we're able to respond accordingly in those scenarios where we have families that have selected multiple seats. So I think that's an opportunity for us, but we certainly want to test some of that
Yeah,
before
absolutely.
we go live.
and that's another benefit of actually moving the timeline
Yeah.
up, is we have, because way back in the day, like, I don't even want to mention how many years ago, we used to actually pull names out of hats
Oh,
for the
I sat in the
lottery.
room and like, yes, I
And
know.
so part of the problem was because we had all these lotteries going on all over the district, then little Jessica might get a seat
Right.
at Coastal and STEM and
Right.
at Garrison, and then all 3 of those schools are scheduling for her. So that was one of the complications, and I think that's one of the reasons that we went to the you just get one seat. But I think that the electronic lottery with the earlier timeline, then that is certainly more doable.
And I hear you that you have to make sure it works, but if you can make that change, you will make so many families, like, that would be huge.
Absolutely.
And then 2 quick little things, and then we'll do a go around as well. So years ago, before Dr. Watts was here, I sent a video. I think it was of DC schools. They did like a 2-minute tutorial. It was fabulous. It was like a little cartoon that showed exactly how the process worked. And I'm going to see if I can dig that up, and I'll forward that back again. But it was fantastic because it was easy to understand. It showed how if you get, your third choice here, your wait list here, what the timelines are for which register. It was great. So I'm going to see if I can dig that up.
You don't even have to find it. It's done. We'll make that happen. That is not very difficult at all.
Okay.
That's an easy lift.
Okay, well, good. Perfect.
Yes,
I
if
know we
y'all
got an
could put
amazing
that
team to
down
do
on your
that.
to-do list.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I know it's not, but it's just, anyways, there's just something, yeah.
And it's needed.
Yeah,
Yes.
it is. And then lastly, I hear you on the, CTAE choice and signature learning experiences. The more we silo and brand 3 different things, the more opportunity there is for confusion. I know you're trying to add clarity, but we live in this world every day. And so I think that's going to be a great thing for our external stakeholders to give us feedback, because I'm a little bit concerned that if we
Yes.
try and segment too much, it's going to increase confusion instead of provide clarity.
I appreciate that feedback, and what is not off the table, again, is sort of rethinking what that looks like completely. What we wanted to bring forward to you are those things that you have heard previously. You are familiar with choice. You're familiar with CTE pathway. You've heard signature learning experience. So part of our work is to make sure that we're clear about what that looks like collectively under whatever brand umbrella, or whether we sort of rethink that altogether.
Okay. All right, we're going to do a quick go around, and then I want us to be mindful of y'all's time, because y'all are very generous. Well, no, it's 5:06. They're ready to go. Ms. Hall.
Okay, again, let's move this to informal so that everybody is here and they're not 5 of us smart board members and the rest of them don't have a clue. Offering academic pathways versus arts pathways, that's going to be, I guess, on the comprehensive side for a couple years from now, but that's extremely important. You were naming some names, and I'm thinking Jesse Norman, Robert De Niro. Would any of them have been able to go to our school, our choice schools, because they didn't excel in math, and trigonometry, and that kind of thing. Well, Jessie Norman grew up in Augusta, so I don't know if she had the opportunity for a choice school there. But my point is, if you're talented, if your talent is bursting from you, it can't just depend on what you're doing in your trig class or your algebra class. There has to be a place for that to grow and expand. So, and that's something that we can probably do versus, as someone was mentioning, STEM, where you're, strictly on an academic focus, and you're gonna help us with NASA and that kind of thing. So, the other thing is always the equity question. I have parents at Garrison who spend inordinate amounts of money giving their children extra piano lessons and extra flute lessons and that kind of thing. So when that audition comes in 8th grade for Savannah Arts, if I've had all that extra, then of course I'm going to be much more likely prepared to pass that audition. So those things. So then we're back to what Dr. Watts is talking about, that baseline experience. We're always discussing here what the students must show us that they can do. I want to flip that over and say, and I love teachers. I know every one of my teachers from kindergarten. I remember every one of them. But who are my teachers? Who are you giving me so that I can take advantage of all of these things along the line, get past the threshold that Tanya Howard Hall is talking about from 2nd grade? How do I know that I'm going to be in the class where that teacher is going to give me what I need to get going? So as much as we spend time on what are the kids showing us, let's spend time on what are we doing to make sure that the people we put in front of our children are prepared and trained and encouraged and supported, and we try to pay them well, but a lot of this is on us, on our side of things, not just what that child is able to show us when they're getting ready to go into 3rd grade. And that's part of the whole equity thing. Does where you go to school decide who the teacher is who's going to be in front of you, and decide that you're going to pass that audition when you get to 8th grade?
And that's why that baseline experience is so important. If you're a parent and you can't afford to put your kid in dance lessons, is there a dance opportunity offered through the school Is there a teacher allocation that's offered that would allow a kid to be able to excel in dance or in art? That's why the baseline experience is so important to me. It's an equity issue. Only those families that can do the extra can get into some of these programs, whereas we might have a very talented student that just has not had the cultivation, the exposure, and the support at the earlier levels to even have a chance. So, I mean, to me, that's why the baseline experience is the first domino for me. But I understand we got to do both simultaneously.
Butler, I want girls to be able, they probably are able now, but we don't encourage it. I want girls to be able to learn how to change a tire and change their oil and that.
Tell them to come to my house.
And we have the automotive program, but in terms of inviting, making it intentional, girls, come and learn how to change a tire, come learn how to change oil and that kind of thing. So let's go this way to expand our offerings.
Am I right in remembering that the first graduate from Woodville Tompkins in the welding school to go straight to JCB was female?
I believe that's correct, yes.
So we're doing that. All right, Mr. Moss, did you have a comment?
Yeah, so real quick, okay. This is academic excellence. 75 is not academic excellence. I do not want our school system to be known as a 75 school system. We can do better. We are better. Our students are better. That dancer can do better than a C- average. We've got to want better for our students. I'm going to go on what Ms. Grabowski said. Savannah Arts Academy is an academically challenging school. All the courses are honors or AP rather. Do we want to start? Could we start a more performing arts kind of specialty school? We could do that. But where we are now with Savannah Arts, and in fairness to those students, and as far as the audition process, the audition standards at Savannah Arts and Garrison have been cut in half. Students that could not get into Savannah Arts or Garrison about 5 years ago can get in now. Should we be let me tell you something, if we were providing real music education, there would be no student that couldn't get into Garrison or Savannah Arts, because it is just basic, it is basic music, it is basic sight reading. And if every one of our students was in a music program or a course program, they would be able to get in. So it really is about what we're providing as that baseline. We want to set our kids up for success. We don't need to water down, and I think it's insulting to our students. You know, I worked with kids for 20 years. You know what they loved? They loved challenge. They loved challenge. They loved being able to read a piece of music. I had 6-year-olds that could sight read better than adults because they loved the challenge. Let's keep the challenge for our kids. Let's give them something, you know. The reason I harp on transportation, if we're going to talk about equity, let's solve the transportation problem for our kids who do the work, who get those grades and want to go to these choice schools, but they can't because of transportation. Let's not water down.
Any other thoughts from board members? Ms. Campbell, do you have something?
Yeah, I echo what Mr. Moss is saying. Mainly, I love the choice programs. I think it is a very unique opportunity for some kids without the ability to receive, maybe even like in my house, your parents don't even know that certain things exist out there because they weren't participating in them when they were younger. And these schools are maybe the only outlet these kids will have. You will never hear me say that we should not have choice programs, ever. But one thing I would ask is that we remember what choice programs are for. They are not to create dancers. They are not to create musicians. They are not to create STEM wizards and architects one day, or fill in the blank, whatever it is. They are to help educate children at the grade level that they are arriving, so that when they finish, they are successful and they can do whatever they want to do with a choice-filled future. And I fear that if we start watering down, to Mr. Moss's point, the 80%, we're saying, well, this is all we're capable of, and kids really don't do well with that. They want expectations because they can do better. They can. And I want them to feel like they can do better whether they're in a choice program or not, because the expectations are high across the board. Baseline experience, signature experience, CTAE, fill in the blank. We expect something of our kids because our kids can do it. So I'm done with that.
That is why it's so important to put the programs in other schools. If dancing and singing and all of those, of course, it's not considered as the academics, put them in other schools. Because we have students that attend Savannah High Beach, Windsor, I'm quite sure, out dance any of those students at Savannah Arts and sing. I had a student one year, she's a recording artist now. She sings with her brother, Marley Music, a very popular singer. She could not get in Savannah Arts because she failed PE when she was at Bartlett. So, in other words, put the programs in other schools because, and then I can just stop right there. But I had a question that's kind of, if a principal sees a need for a CTA program at their school, how should they go about requesting that particular program? Because I know that there are many programs and it's dependent upon a budget, so.
Yeah, so just a brief response. I think the first step really is to connect with our CTAE department to begin that exploration process. And of course, we've got a very extensive process that we follow to determine if the feasibility of that program, a lot of different things are taken into consideration. But that's generally the first step, and that occurs quite often.
Yeah, and our director, Amy, has developed a really extensive application process where the principal will do research, the economic situation here, the workforce demand for that particular pathway, and most importantly, student interest. How many students at that school are interested in that particular pathway and the logistics of bringing it. So there's a whole process that they go through that has a lot of data behind it.
And I will say this, back to comparing the programs at Woodville-Tompkins, they are offered at Savannah High, which is good. The welding and the culinary arts and cosmetology, which is good. It'd be nice if there was another high school that can mirror some of the programs at Savannah Arts.
Yes, ma'am.
Dance and drama and visual arts, so.
I agree, because often Woodville does have an extensive wait list typically, and so I'll have parents who call, and a lot of times when I tell them that program is duplicated at Savannah High, that's the first time they're aware of it. So, yeah, I think there's definitely some room for some duplication at other schools.
And then since you said that, I attend probably more neighborhood meetings than any school board member. I go to maybe 6 every month. And when I go to neighborhood meetings and hear them say, what are y'all doing? Because when we went to school, we had shop and home economics. They're not aware of what we're doing. We have to do a better job with, and I don't know, maybe because they don't have children in school, maybe that's why they're not aware of it. But with the middle schools, are you all trying to work more with middle schools?
Yes, ma'am.
With those parents so they can prepare their students, get them ready, with that baseline experience in middle school, so they'll have the opportunity to go to those different choice programs?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
I think in closing, unless, Ms. Hall, did you have something?
I just wanted to tell Ms. Perry, to tell her whole department, we are becoming famous for our CTAE programs, and we need to applaud that. With all the, dismay we have to go through on everything, that is a real plus for us. And you're right, Tanya, that our own audience, a lot of them don't know what we're offering, but across the country, I mean, I was in Florida, and people there knew that Savannah schools had welding and those kind of internships. They called them internships, different from what we call them. But we are getting on the map for that, and that's wonderful.
I think that what we're seeing, at least in the time that I've been on the board, is we are seeing those other schools pick up the programs that are successful in our choice program. They may not be concentrated like they are in one school, but I've seen our other high schools really start to ramp up their chorus or their band or their theater. So I think it's a little bit harder to find because it's not, marketed as that. But I'm encouraged to see our schools, stepping it up in areas like that and being able to offer those programs. And as we know, so many times it comes down to having the right teacher that really puts the heart and soul into making the program successful. And I know that we're on a pathway to making sure that we have that at all our schools. And then the final comment I'll make is just I really like what you opened with, Mr. Butler, about the design implication, that the redesign must move beyond who gets a seat to how every student can access a high-quality, future-ready experience. I think that fundamental reframing of how we talk about our choice CTA and, unlimited possibilities is really, again, fundamentally tied into that baseline experience and hopefully will help to alleviate some of the us versus them that we have battled, I think, as a part of this. So thank you to you all, to the team, and also to, the team that presented earlier to us on the summer school program. We always appreciate all the work that you do. And Ms. Hall will be happy to share that our next Academic Excellence Committee meeting will be during the board retreat, so we'll have the full board there to be able to participate in that. And with that, I think we are ready to adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you.